January 2025 began with an ominous orange glow in the skies of California. From the rolling hills of Los Angeles to the sun-kissed beaches of San Diego, a series of wildfires erupted, quickly engulfing thousands of acres in a fiery inferno. Fueled by years of drought, tinder-dry vegetation and powerful Santa Ana winds, these weren't ordinary wildfires. They were fast-moving, unpredictable, and utterly devastating. The first flames ignited on January 7th, catching many off guard. Within days, the situation escalated dramatically. By the end of January, 14 major wildfires raged across the state, leaving behind a trail of destruction that would take years, if not decades, to heal. The images were apocalyptic. Homes reduced to ashes, once familiar landscapes scarred beyond recognition, and the air thick with smoke, making it difficult to breathe. As firefighters battled tirelessly on the front lines, a sense of disbelief and fear gripped the nation. The sheer scale of the disaster was unlike anything California had ever witnessed. It was a stark reminder of the awesome power of nature and the fragility of human life in the face of such overwhelming force. To understand the ferocity of the 2025 California wildfires, one must look beyond the flames themselves and examine the confluence of factors that created a tinderbox-like environment ripe for disaster. The story of these wildfires is not just about the flames that consumed vast swaths of land, but also about the underlying conditions that made such a catastrophe possible. Years of persistent drought had parched the land, turning vegetation into highly flammable fuel. This wasn't just any drought, it was a relentless multi-year event that had left the soil cracked and the plants brittle. This drought, the most severe in recorded history, was exacerbated by climate change, with rising temperatures increasing evaporation rates and further drying out the landscape. The heat waves that accompanied this drought were relentless, baking the earth and making it even more susceptible to fire. Adding to this dangerous mix were the infamous Santa Ana winds, fierce gusts that roar down from the mountains, reaching speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. These winds are notorious for their ability to spread fires rapidly, turning a small spark into a raging inferno in a matter of minutes. These winds, known for their ability to turn small sparks into raging infernos, acted like bellows, fanning the flames and driving them with terrifying speed across the dry terrain. Firefighters found themselves battling not just the flames, but also the relentless winds that made their job even more challenging. The combination of these factors, prolonged drought, record-breaking heat, and powerful winds, created a perfect storm for disaster, setting the stage for a firestorm of unprecedented proportions. It was a scenario where nature's fury was unleashed in its most destructive form. However, attributing the disaster solely to natural forces would be a simplification. The human element cannot be ignored in this narrative. While the environmental factors played a significant role, human actions, or rather inactions, also contributed to the scale of the catastrophe. Communities were caught off guard, and the lack of preparedness only made the situation worse. Inadequate forest management practices, including a lack of controlled burns to reduce fuel loads, allowed for the unchecked accumulation of dry vegetation, providing ample fuel for the fires to consume. This oversight turned what could have been manageable fires into uncontrollable infernos, highlighting the need for better forest management and proactive measures to prevent such disasters in the future. The 2025 California wildfires left behind a trail of devastation that extended far beyond the charred landscapes. The fires raged for weeks, consuming everything in their path and leaving a haunting reminder of nature's fury. The human cost of the disaster was immeasurable, with at least 29 lives tragically lost in the inferno. Each life lost represented a family shattered, dreams extinguished, and futures forever altered. Families were torn apart, homes reduced to rubble, and entire communities displaced, their lives upended in a matter of hours. The emotional and psychological toll on survivors was profound, as they grappled with the loss of loved ones and the destruction of their homes. The official death toll, while staggering, likely underrepresented the true extent of the tragedy, as many people remained unaccounted for, lost in the chaos and confusion of the evacuations. The search for missing persons continued for weeks, adding to the anguish of those left behind. Beyond the immediate loss of life, the wildfires had a profound impact on the state's infrastructure and economy. Roads and bridges were damaged, businesses and schools were forced to close, and the firefighting efforts strained local resources to their limits. Over 18,000 structures were destroyed, including homes, businesses, schools, and critical infrastructure. The rebuilding process would take years, requiring significant investment and coordination. The financial cost of the disaster was estimated to be between $250 and $275 billion, making it one of the costliest natural disasters in U.S. history. Insurance companies faced an overwhelming number of claims, and the economic ripple effects were felt nationwide. The fires also took a heavy toll on the environment, releasing millions of tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, further exacerbating the climate crisis. Wildlife habitats were destroyed, and countless animals perished or were displaced. The air quality in affected areas plummeted, posing significant health risks to residents, especially those with respiratory problems. Hospitals and clinics saw a surge in patients suffering from smoke inhalation and other related health issues. In the aftermath of the devastating wildfires, scrutiny turned towards the response of local authorities, particularly in Los Angeles, the state's most populous city. The fires had left a trail of destruction, and the city's response was under the microscope. Many residents felt that the city had not done enough to protect them, and the criticism was mounting. Critics argued that the city's emergency response was slow and inadequate, failing to anticipate the scale of the disaster despite ample warnings from meteorologists and fire experts. The frustration was palpable as residents voiced their concerns, feeling that their safety had been compromised. The rapid spread of the fires overwhelmed firefighting resources, leaving many residents feeling abandoned and let down by the very institutions entrusted with their safety. The sheer scale of the disaster was unprecedented, and the city's resources were stretched thin. Adding fuel to the fire, so to speak, was the controversial decision by then LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley to not maintain a full contingent of firefighters on duty during the critical period of high winds. This decision was met with widespread criticism and was seen as a major oversight. Crowley argued that the decision was based on budgetary constraints and a desire to avoid firefighter fatigue. She maintained that the safety of her team was also a priority, but this explanation did little to appease the public. However, her critics, including newly elected Mayor Karen Bass, viewed it as a grave miscalculation that cost precious time and resources. The new administration was quick to distance itself from the previous decisions, promising a thorough review of the city's emergency protocols. The public outcry over the perceived mishandling of the disaster was swift and fierce. Town hall meetings were filled with angry residents demanding answers and accountability from their leaders. Mayor Bass, in one of her first acts in office, fired Chief Crowley, citing a loss of confidence in her leadership. This move was seen as a necessary step to restore public trust, but it also highlighted the deep divisions within the city's leadership. The move, while applauded by some, did little to quell the anger and frustration of those who had lost loved ones, homes, and businesses in the inferno. The emotional toll of the disaster was immense, and the community was struggling to come to terms with the loss. The blame game had begun, and it seemed that everyone from local officials to state agencies to the federal government was being held accountable for the perceived failures in preventing and responding to the disaster. The road to recovery would be long and fraught with challenges as the city grappled with the aftermath of one of the most devastating wildfires in its history. Some people believe that the wildfires are a form of divine retribution, a punishment for humanity's wrongdoings. They argue that these natural disasters are a wake-up call, urging us to change our ways and mend our relationship with the environment. Others, however, see this narrative as overly simplistic and dismiss it as a myth. they emphasize the importance of scientific understanding and practical solutions to address the root causes of wildfires. In any case, the debate continues, reflecting the complex and multifaceted nature of our relationship with the natural world. In Islamic teachings, disasters are often seen as tests from God. These trials, while challenging, are believed to offer opportunities for growth and reflection. The Quran encourages patience and resilience, urging believers to support one another during times of hardship. This perspective fosters a sense of community and shared responsibility, which can be vital in the aftermath of a disaster. Rebuilding after a disaster is a complex and long-term process. It involves not just the physical reconstruction of homes and infrastructure, but also the emotional and social healing of communities. Support networks, both local and global, play a crucial role in this process. By coming together, communities can rebuild stronger and more resilient than before. As we look to the future, building resilience is key. This means investing in infrastructure that can withstand natural disasters and creating policies that support sustainable development. Education and awareness are also critical, as they empower individuals and communities to take proactive steps in reducing their vulnerability to future disasters. Climate change poses a significant threat to our planet, exacerbating the frequency and intensity of natural disasters. It is our collective duty to address this challenge through sustainable practices and policies. By working together, we can mitigate the impacts of climate change and protect our planet for future generations. Each of us has a role to play in creating a more sustainable and resilient world.